Hello, me again. Um, so this is episode 3 of Website Basics, and tonight we're going to talk about hosting. Um, Last night we talked about domains. So when I talk about domains tonight, if you haven't seen that live, then go over into the group and have a look for episode 2. The night before that, I talked about the different types of websites you can have. So go and have a look for episode 1. So I'm going to presume you've watched those when I talk tonight. So I won't go over anything to do with domains unless it's relevant. So hosting. This is the big one that everybody always asks, who should I use? First of all, I'll talk about the important things when considering which web host to use. There's hundreds, possibly even thousands of web hosts, probably more like hundreds. It's a big industry. And what I have found in all the years that I've made websites for different people on different hosting plans, the most important thing that I can see is the thing that makes them stand out from each other is the customer service. The things that are really important with a web host are security, obviously, speed, price obviously is important depending on what your budget is, but they all make sure that stuff's covered because it's super important. So the thing that, in my experience, makes me prefer one to another is customer service. I will talk about the essential things that they must have first, just so that you know what things you should be looking out for. So the most important thing is security. Are they can they prove that they regularly check that their servers are secure? I'm just going to wipe the camera because I think it's all blurred. Have I made it worse? Possibly. Hold on, I have a scarf. Back in a second. Right, hello. So security, not security of your website, security of their servers. So if I tell you what I mean when I say server, then that will be a bit more clear to you. So a server is the space on the internet that holds your website. So each company has a set amount of servers which allows them to hold certain amounts of websites, and these servers can be hacked. So what you need to be aware of is that they're constantly updating their own server security, and you can find that out by going on the website, searching for security or server security, and they'll tell you all about their processes, what they do. But in the main, they know that they have to do that, so that's something that they're going to do. There's going to be some which are better than others, some which are really security conscious, and some which are not so security conscious. But they all cover it, and it's not something that concerns me greatly because I know that they're covering that side of them because it's their business, so they're not going to be lax in terms of server security. In terms of your own website security, you'll have heard possibly of an SSL, which is, I can't even remember what that stands for. What that means is on a website, so if you're on desktop, if you look at your Facebook URL, in front of that you'll see a little green padlock. And when you go on most websites today, you'll see a little green padlock with HTTPS. That means the website's secure, which means it can't easily be hacked into, so people can't steal information. If you should make a payment on that website, or if you have any information, if you put your details into that website, nobody's going to be able to hack into it. Now, the best web hosts provide free SSL certificates automatically, so that when you get set up hosting with them, your website's covered straight away. And all you have to do, you normally have to activate it or request for it to be activated, and then it will be HTTPS, and you'll get that green padlock. Now that's something that not all of them do. You don't get a free SSL certificate with every web host, so that's something to look for. Do they provide free SSL certificates? And there's different levels of SSL. So if you're just an information site and you're not taking any payments, you can have the lowest one. If you take payments from through a payment gateway like PayPal or something like that, which is off your site, then you can still go for the lower one because the information going into your website isn't anything financial. That all happens off site. Obviously, once you become a huge site and you have your own payment systems and things, you're going to pay for the super top end SSL. But for anything you want, the basic, either free or slightly, if you would, some web hosts you do have to pay up to something like 50 quid a year for the SSL. But the best ones now give you the free ones because it's something that should come as standard with websites, because the way that Google is ranking websites now includes whether they've got an SSL certificate. They'll actually scan the website, and if you don't have SSL, then you will show up lower in searches. They'll penalise you for that. So SSL is really important. After that, customer service. Now, most of them also, they have 24-hour customer service, but you really need to talk to people to see whether that's the case, because there's some customer service where you'll get on a chat box and you'll ask them a question and they'll give you an answer, and you get bots as well. So you'll put in a question, it will just come back with a standard answer that doesn't help. Then you've got the ones where there is a real person, but because it's 24/7, sometimes you link to people in other countries who English isn't their first language, so there's confusion. Or sometimes you'll speak to somebody and they'll say, we'll get back to you. So if you have a look in the description of the video up there, I've got 2 links for my 2 favourite web hosts. And for me, these 2 are the ones that I've experienced the best customer service with, and I'll explain why in a little while. But for me, customer service is a big one, because if your website breaks, you want it fixed. There's nothing more stressful than your website breaking, especially for a web designer. So knowing that there are people there who genuinely care about fixing your website is massive for me. The next thing which is really important is backups. So does the web host provide auto backups, automatically backing up your website? Normally it's daily. Sometimes you can upgrade to have, or almost always actually, you can upgrade to have more regular backups. So you can have 6 hour, 12 hour, however is more frequent, however frequently you want it. But daily is normally okay, unless you're changing things on there all the time. Excuse me, daily is normally enough. The best web hosts provide free daily backups and will reinstate your website should something go wrong. So they automatically back it up. You can do it yourself through what's called the cPanel, which is like the workings, all the files from the website. But the best ones, you can message them, say, this has gone wrong, and they'll say, we'll do you a backup. That would be something that most websites have something go wrong at some point, and it can be just that you've fiddled with something, accidentally broken it, and you just need them to put it back to how it was before you did that. So obviously, if you're dealing with WordPress, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow, you can do your own backups as well, but I always prefer to rely on the backups from the servers, just because it uses up less memory, and sometimes web hosts don't like you doing your own backups or your own security on your own website. They prefer to just go with what they've going, because there can be conflicts and things, but that's a whole other issue. So auto backups, another important one. The last one that's important, if you're planning on using WordPress, is that it's got a one-click install for WordPress. So what that means is you go in, you tell them your domain. This is how normally you buy hosting. They say, have you got a domain? You go either yes and type in your domain, or you go no, and this is the domain I want, and then they'll give you a price for you to purchase the domain during the process. Both of the hosts here you can do that with. And then you can request that it will install WordPress as part of the setup. Sometimes you have to manually do it yourself, but it's super easy. You can ask them. There's normally, if you have to do it manually, there's a tutorial, and you just follow the tutorial. You just go to a certain place, literally just click install WordPress, it will come up with a few little questions which aren't anything taxing. You just click it and then WordPress will appear on your site. And then obviously you have to set all that up, install your theme and add everything on there. But the hard bit of putting WordPress is on there. So that's another thing. If you're planning on using WordPress, do they have WordPress one-click install, or Joomla, or the other types of CMS as well? You can get one-click install for those. So those are the most important things. Obviously, price is another important thing. The prices tend to be fairly similar. The reason for different prices are the type of service you're getting. So the cheapest service is based on a shared server. So if you imagine, again, servers are physical things in the offices of the web hosts, and your website's got a bit of one server and lots of other websites are on the same server. Now, that server's only got a certain amount of resources, so if this website down here suddenly gets loads and loads of traffic, that's potentially going to slow up the other websites. But most of the websites on a shared server are fairly small, and it's the slowing down of your website will be very rare, and it would be, you probably wouldn't even notice it. So that's the cheaper ones. Lots of websites sharing one server. That's called shared hosting. Then after that, you've got VPS hosting, which is similar. So shared hosting on one server, but just fewer websites. So for bigger websites, you want VPS. Not all web hosts offer VPS. They either have shared, or the final type is dedicated servers. So one massive website has its own server on its own, or many servers for huge websites. And they would, I mean, something like Facebook would have its own servers. They wouldn't be hosting anything, they would be doing it themselves. So that's how you rent, pretty much. So it's like, back to the home analogy as I was doing the other day. So if your domain's your address, the server is, say, the town, and it's the council are running it, and then you pay your council tax to the council, and hire a little bit of the server, if that makes sense. So the price depends on how much of the server you are renting. So if you've got a small amount, you're going to pay a small amount of money. If you've got a dedicated server, that's expensive. Most small websites, well, all small websites will be absolutely fine with shared hosting. They don't need to pay loads and loads and loads. So I'm going to talk about these two hosts now. We're doing that right. So the one at the top is SiteGround. They are USA based. I don't use them for my websites, but this last year I've used them for every website I've set up. I've heard nothing but good stuff about them. They're not the cheapest, but their customer service is absolutely brilliant. They've got genuine 24-hour customer service. You get on the website, you can bring up a chat box. You can phone them, but they're in America. But chat box, and they, from everything I've heard and experienced, they are genuinely bothered about getting your website fixed if there's a problem. They've got everything else I've talked about. Super fast servers, great security, free SSL certificate, which is automatic, I believe. I think it is one-click install for WordPress. If you go on the website, you've actually, I'm just going to have a drink. Excuse me. If you go on your website, you can actually set it up as WordPress hosting. So if you install WordPress, they do automatic backups of WordPress, so WordPress never gets out of date. You don't have to back it up yourself. And they are officially recommended by WordPress as well. So USA based, but fantastic customer service, all the other important stuff, security, everything is great. So I highly recommend them. They start off, their lowest package is $2.75 a month plus VAT, and then that's for 6 months, and then it increases to $8.95 a month, $8.95 a month plus VAT. I don't know what the exchange rate would make that, probably about £6 something. So it's not very much at all. And honestly, it's worth it for the customer service. So they're not the cheapest out there, but for me, it's well worth going with a company that offers everything they do and is recommended by WordPress if you're using WordPress. The other company is Birch Hosting. I love these. I've used these since, I don't know why I used these. I can't remember why. It was so long ago when I set up my first website that wasn't on a website builder, that was, I don't think it was WordPress. I can't remember, but ages ago, I used them. They're in Lichfield, just down the road. They've got their own servers in Lichfield. I'm in Birmingham, as you can probably tell. They're in Lichfield, and I am so loyal to them because they have rescued me so many times. I've literally had the owner of the company phone me up on a Sunday night when I was having a massive flap about something that had gone wrong. He phoned me and we talked it through and he fixed it for me. And they are just really, really helpful. They've just always been so good for me. So if you're looking for a UK-based company, they are a small company. Their customer service isn't as quick, so you will send them an email and you raise support tickets with them. So, and you'll get on there, and if it's outside of office hours, they don't necessarily always reply. Greg, the owner, often replies to me really, really quickly, but you can't necessarily rely on that. They have got a telephone number you can phone as well and just have a chat, and it's UK based. And they're just really good guys. They've got everything that you need in terms of all the stuff that I've talked about. And I think just because they're British, you can chuck them a message. And I'm really tongue in cheek because I break things all the time with my websites, and I'll fire them off a message and I'll just say, it's me again. I've broken this, that, and the other. Can you have a look and fix it for me? So if you want a UK-based small company, which I'm all about supporting UK-based small companies, then I would highly recommend Birch. I'm not bothered about that. SiteGround are number one with a lot of reviews at the moment, and everything I've heard is really, really good. Now, I've put links to them up here. Those are my affiliate links. So if you use those, I'll get a little kickback. So if you are thinking of hosting, you don't know who to use, I get more with SiteGround. But if you want to use a UK-based company that you can phone 9 till 6 every day, then use Birch Hosting. So if you click through to SiteGround, then you're going to want I'm just going to have a look at their website, so excuse me a second. You're going to want their startup package. That's what their cheaper one, it's called Startup. For Birch Hosting, you can have Host 2, which is their start. Oh, I didn't tell you their price. There's Host 2, which is, just bear with me. You want cPanel hosting with Birch, because they do different types of hosting. It's called cPanel hosting. And then you want either Host 2, but I generally recommend Host 4, which is £3.49 a month. And it just means that you've got a little bit more space on the server, so you don't have to worry about upgrading if you just start putting any big photos and things on there, and it's not much more expensive. So with Birch, it's cPanel hosting, and Host 4 with SiteGround, it's the startup. You can get Grow Big with SiteGround, which is a bit more money, but to begin with, you don't need it. And with these places, you can always upgrade. If you're running out of space on a host on your website and everything's slowing down and things, you can drop them a message and say, things aren't working so well. Do I need to increase my space on the server so things are running faster or whatever? And they are really useful, really helpful. It can seem a really big scary thing. It's not. You've got to remember this is what they do. They know people don't know anything about it, and they're almost always willing to help, especially these places. I'll just tell you about places that I've had not so good experience with. GoDaddy. GoDaddy's hosting support is just dreadful, and I really don't like the way everything's set up in the back end. They're fine for domains, but with hosting, it's just I've just not had good experiences with them. I think they're one of the cheaper ones, and that may be why. But I wouldn't recommend GoDaddy for hosting. If you're already with them, you know, and you're fine with them, that's absolutely fine. Um, and you can always transfer. That's the thing with hosting. If you set up with a company, you don't like them, you can transfer your website to another company. And you know they'll the new company the same with your home utilities, the new company will help you move and they'll tell you what you need to do. So that's always something. You're not fixed into one place. You can move them around. Your website is a group of files. It's literally called a database. It's just files like you'd normally have on your computer. Your website's stored in there, and you can download your whole website and then upload it to a new server, or the new web host can take it off the old web host server and bring it over for you. There's no big problem, no big deal. Once you're with one place, you're not fixed with them for life unless it says that in your contract. You can always move around. Have you lost